The 2019-20 NBA season finally came to a close last Sunday as the Los Angeles Lakers defeated the Miami Heat in 6 games. This was the 3rd time in a row that the Lakers started off the decade with winning a championship. This was one of the most unforgettable NBA seasons of all time. The season started on October 22, 2019 and ended on October 11, 2020. The longest NBA season ever. It was filled with excitement, surprises, and sadness. This season, we lost a couple of members of the NBA family. The former NBA Commissioner David Stern, former Portland Trailblazer and Phoenix Sun Clifford Robertson, and the one and only all-time great Kobe Bryant. And then the emotional roller coaster continued as the NBA was suspended in March due to a global pandemic. And the season finally continued in the NBA bubble in Orlando, where we saw some of the best basketball in the playoffs in a long time. Instead of the NBA draft and free agency taking place in the heat of the summer, it would take place later than usual. The NBA draft would take place on November 18th, and NBA free agency will start in either late November or early December. The 2019 NBA free agency was one of the most stacked free agent classes of all time. The 2020 version will not have that kind of buzz or talent. That number of game-changing players won't be available to sign like last year. There's only one marquee player available this time around. There will still be quality players, but not the ones that could change a franchise. But make no mistake, a good franchise will always find ways to improve their team in free agency and possibly add a key piece to a championship contender. This is my top free agents of 2020. During the last offseason, it was a better chance that Christian Wood would be out of the league than being on the top free agent list in 2020. One of the biggest stories about the Detroit Pistons training camp last year was would Joe Johnson or Christian Wood make the last roster spot. After being undrafted in 2015 and playing 51 NBA games with 4 teams in his first 3 years, Wood has positioned himself for a big pay raise after a breakout season. He showed he could be a key part of a good offense moving forward. Wood made it clear that he can score efficiently in a number of ways that can help you win games. His 38% from 3 opened up opportunities for him to drive and score at the rim. 71% of his attempts were layups, dunks, and floaters. With his athleticism and size, you can understand why he scores a lot in the paint. He isn't known for his defense, but he's not terrible. His length, quickness, and competitiveness at least gives him an opportunity to block and alter a couple of shots at the rim. With Drummond being traded to Cleveland, Detroit has the cap space to bring Wood back, but how much would be too much? With long-range shooting being so important in today's NBA, Joe Harris makes this list. We just saw how valuable an elite shooter can be for an offense with how Duncan Robinson played in the playoffs. And Harris is that level of shooter. There's been a few players in the league who has been as impressive as a shooter in the last couple of years than Harris. He's also a tough-minded player who plays good defense. The type of player you need to win a championship. The Nets' mindset next season will be totally different compared to last season. One of the NBA's most gifted scorers of all time will be coming back from an ACL injury, and you add Kyrie Irving and the rest of the crew, and you have a team that should be in the mix for an NBA championship. Harris will be a highly sought-after free agent. His shooting gravity will be so important for the Nets' half-court offense. Harris is a perfect piece to play alongside Durant and Kyrie. Gordon Hayward has never been fully healthy during his time in Boston. Every time he seems to find a rhythm with his teammates, another injury happens. After missing so many games in the playoffs this year, you can tell the more he played, the more limited he became because of his conditioning. That happens when you miss a lot of game action. Even though he doesn't have the same opportunities he had when he was a star in Utah, Hayward has still put up great numbers as he has been able to contribute in every aspect of the game. His player option is over $30 million. And for someone who has had a bad history of injuries, most people think he will be crazy to opt out of that deal. It's definitely reasonable to expect the Celtics and Hayward to work out a deal where he opts out and then sign a team-friendly short-term deal. Nobody increased their value going into free agency more than Jerami Grant. This guy was tremendous for the Denver Nuggets in the regular season and the playoffs. We all know what type of athlete he is. That's never been questioned. But over the last couple of years, he's become a reliable outside shooter. But this season in particular, he has developed into more than just an outside shooter, taking defenders off the dribble, pulling up from mid-range, and attacking the lane and finishing over the top of the defense. Grant proved to be extremely versatile on the defensive end also. He spent the vast majority of his time in the playoffs guarding Anthony Davis, LeBron James, and Kawhi Leonard, and did a good job. Grant will opt out of his $9 million player option. The value he provided this season deserves a contract above at least $15 million a year. With Paul Millsap, Mason Plumlee, and Torrey Craig becoming free agents, the Nuggets need to do everything they can to retain Grant. Danilo Gallinari has proven that he's still an impact player. The 32-year-old can be an extremely valuable asset to teams around the league. He helped OKC shock the NBA by making the playoffs, with most of the experts projecting OKC to be one of the worst teams in the league. He's a smart basketball player who can help any offense in the league. He shoots a great percentage from three, has a high basketball IQ, the ball doesn't stick in his hands, and his defense is underrated. At this stage, his value is on the same level as Kevin Love in my opinion. He obviously won't command the same type of money that Kevin Love did, which will make him even more attractive to teams with cap space this offseason. With him being at the age of 32 and OKC looking to move forward with a young team, it's a good chance that Gallinari will be wearing a different jersey next season. Bogdan Bogdanović has been an excellent role player for the Sacramento Kings. He's been the go-to guy for the most part, and he has hit a lot of clutch shots in his 3-year career. Buddy Hield did sign a big contract before this season, but there have been some rumors about Hield not being happy with the team and wants to be traded out of Sacramento. If that's the case, then Bogdanović will be in line to be a full-time starter, and that's something he deserves. He will be a restricted free agent, so the Kings have the advantage in trying to keep him in Sacramento. The Kings did hire a new general manager in Monte McNair, who has been reshaping the front office. He might want to reshape the whole roster also. Maybe he won't be in favor of keeping Bogdanović. Maybe Bogdanović will have a chance to leave Sacramento and play for a more stable franchise. He is 28 years old. This could be his first and last big contract in the NBA. Montrezl Harrell has had one of the best value contracts in the NBA in the last couple of years. He was making only $6 million a year for the last 3 years. There's no doubt he will try to cash in on his next contract after being underpaid. Montrezl had an incredible regular season in which he was awarded the Sixth Man of the Year trophy. But it was his postseason performance that left a lot of people scratching their heads. His play in the regular season and the playoffs was like night and day. Montrezl was almost unplayable at times against the Mavericks and the Nuggets. His size and his defense was exposed, especially when he was matched up with Nikola Jokic. The Clippers obviously want Harrell back, but does he even want to come back? With the way the Clippers crashed and burned and failed to even make the conference finals, and the fact that Harrell and Paul George had an altercation in Game 2 against the Nuggets, maybe Harrell will be more interested in signing with another team. The Clippers can go over the salary cap and sign him because they have his bird rights, but how much are they willing to pay him? Fred VanVleet had his coming out party in the playoffs last season, especially in the NBA Finals, hitting big shot after big shot to help the Raptors win their first ever NBA championship. He carried that success over to this season and had a career year. VanVleet has grown his game from being a reserve to being one of the driving forces of the franchise. He has always proven that he can handle being a starting point guard in the league by filling in for Kyle Lowry when he had injuries, and the team still played up to their capabilities when VanVleet was running the show. This season he started with Kyle Lowry in the backcourt. He's only 26 years old, and with his impact and production over the last 2 years, he will definitely get a pay raise. His raise could cost maybe around $20 million a year, and the Raptors have to ask the question of, how do they continue to build a sustainable championship contender after re-signing VanVleet? He will have a number of teams after him, and those teams will probably have to overpay to get him away from Toronto. DeMar DeRozan has a $27 million player option for next season, and I believe there's a good chance he could opt in. DeRozan probably views himself as a max player. It'll be hard to find any executive in the league that agrees with him. The three-time All-Star is 31 years old and will be looking for his last big contract of his career. He's very unique in that he's a shooting guard in 2020 who is very efficient in the mid-range area but is a very bad three-point shooter. He shot 25% from the three-point line this season, which is not at all unexpected. That's not the type of player you want to give a ton of money to. The Spurs had a disappointing season and missed the playoffs for the first time since 1997. DeRozan is a good player, but teams aren't looking for him to be one of the two best players on their team. Not many teams will have a ton of cap space this free agency. Most of them are planning for the 2021 free agency. DeRozan could find himself in another uniform next season, but it might be because the Spurs trade him after he opted into the last year of his contract. Andre Drummond has continued to put up all-star numbers in the last couple of seasons, even if his impact is not as big as the stats would suggest. He's a walking double-double, one of the best rebounders in the game. After the Pistons got off to a horrible start to the season, they decided to trade Drummond to the Cleveland Cavaliers. He only played 8 games with the Cavaliers, and the team went 4-4, which is very encouraging. Much like DeRozan, Drummond has a player option around $27–28 million, and he is more than likely going to opt in. He knows he probably won't get a max extension. Next season, Drummond has a lot to prove. He's probably going to play at least one more year in Cleveland to try to prove around the league that he can be the impact player that a team needs. Brandon Ingram decided to bet on himself after not agreeing to an extension with the Pelicans before the season, and it looks like it will pay off. There were a number of players from the 2016 draft class that signed extensions, and you know that probably motivated Ingram even more. I'm sure the Pelicans didn't want to give him a max extension. They needed to see how much he could improve his game and if he could stay healthy. Not only did he play every single game this year for the Pelicans, he showed why he was the second overall pick in 2016. His play led to him making his first ever All-Star team and winning the Most Improved Player award. He will get his max extension, whether it's with the Pelicans or another team. He is a restricted free agent, and there's no way the Pelicans should even consider not giving him that kind of money. He was the main piece of the Anthony Davis trade, the only piece that has seemed to work out so far. They can't let him get away. The most game-changing player in this free agent class is Anthony Davis. This was a storybook season for AD. You couldn't have written it any better. Teaming up with LeBron James was a match made in heaven. After only getting out of the first round only once in his first 7 years, he was able to help lead the Lakers back to championship glory, something they haven't experienced in a decade. He's an NBA champion, a first-team All-NBA performer, a first-team All-Defensive performer. He proved that he should be considered in a top 3 player discussion. He's the only superstar that will be on the market, and it's almost a no-brainer that he will resign back with the Lakers this offseason. The question is, will it be a 5-year deal or one of those LeBron-type deals where he signs a short-term contract?